Ah putain, c'est la...
C'est bon. C'est bon. Ouais, salut à tous, Audiofanzine. Et ben, on est maintenant sur le stand de Zynaptiq avec Denis. Salut Denis.
Bonjour.
Ah, en français et tout. Le stand de Zynaptiq, c'est toujours l'occasion de découvrir des algos de folie,
Ouais.
des plugins de dingue.
Donc
et
là, donc, il a un nouveau plugin qui s'appelle Wormhole, donc le trou de...
le trou de verre. Alors, pas du tout de zoophilie là-dedans. Hein.
Non,
le
pas du
trou de
tout.
verre, c'est justement, je crois, c'est ce qu'on décrit dans l'espace, justement des passages entre plusieurs dimensions.
Ouais.
Mais chez Zynaptiq, c'est surtout, je crois, l'occasion d'un multi-effet. Évidemment, un truc barré comme d'habitude. Denis va nous montrer ça.
Ouais. Donc on vous propose
très
d'assister
vite.
à sa démo et puis
en
on va
reparle
revenir.
après.
Voilà, on en reparle après. À
Voilà.
tout de suite.
Ouh,
Ok, Denis.
Hey guys, welcome to the very first Wormhole demo of this show here at Music Mess in 2017. Let me show it to you. Our new plugin Wormhole. What does it do? It does not quite take you to a different parallel universe. We're still working on the actual wormhole technology, but it does the equivalent for your audio. So what is it? It is a multi-effects processor that is geared towards extreme manipulation of your sound. It also does more subtle things like left-right microshift detuning, delays, reverbs, all that. And it's made of several sections that I'll describe in more detail in a bit. Let me start by showing you how it sounds. Here's a guitar. Let me bring up a preset. As I said, it's the first demo of the show. Here's a guitar. And now I can do all sorts of really beautiful stuff to that. Note how the pitch shifting in this, it has a pitch shifter, is super clean. Let me maybe talk about the pitch shifter, because everybody and his little sister has a pitch shifter already. What is so special about this one that you need to buy yet another one? Well, very simple. It's completely different. You know, every other pitch shifter out there uses delay lines or phase vocoders, FFTs, that sort of stuff to do the pitch shifting. As a result, they have a very particular type of artifact they have. Now ours has a different type of artifact in a nutshell. It doesn't use those technologies. We use a proprietary new approach how to create pitch shifting that has different sonic properties. Let me just show you straight pitch shifting with this. We set it up, so here's our guitar. And now I can go ahead and it's super clean. Even for octaves, I mean, that's a lot, but it's still not totally messed up. There's several modes. There's a tight shifting mode, a smooth shifting mode. I don't think I'll need to explain what they are for. And there's two detuning modes, which use the tight and the smooth modes to shift up and down in opposing directions for the left and right in a smaller amount. Now that can create some really super smooth detuning, chorusing, widening effects. Here's the guitar again. And here we go. You should check this out in the studio. It's butter. I'm not exaggerating, it's really butter smooth. There's a whole variety of factor presets you can just step through with widening and detuning of all sorts of amounts. But yeah, as at the start of the demo, you will have heard, it does the whole vintage 80s effects processor in the rack, fifth pitched reverb tails of utter beauty thing really well, but it doesn't break down and the parts don't become unavailable and it sounds very 2017. It doesn't just do beautiful stuff. No, it's called the Otherworldly effects processor. What does that mean? It's really, really great for doing weird stuff, broken stuff, alien stuff at a very high quality. For example, here's some speech.
As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart.
Now, let's turn that into a different being.
As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart. As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus
at 2 different points of the chart. As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus.
You'll note when you listen to this in detail in a controlled monitoring environment that intelligibility for speech processing is super high. Why? Well, for one, our pitch shifting works differently than other pitch shifters, so it retains that detail really well that you need for intelligibility. But the second aspect of that is a really unique feature that only Wormhole has over here on the top, right? Where you typically expect your dry-wet fader, we have the effects blend. That can also do a dry-wet mix, but it includes our morphing technology from our morph plugin to allow you to morph from the dry to the wet, so that the new harmonics grow out of the sound and that you get intermediate stages and that you can really control the intensity of the effect rather than just the mix amount. And as a plus, it also imparts the envelope of the source back onto your effects for very defined sound and high intelligibility. Now let me show you. Let's set up a monster voice real quick, like for example, like that. Oh, hold on, let me skip this part.
As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart.
Yeah.
As, in an...
Now I'm going to switch this into one morphing mode and go smoothly from the one to the other.
As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart. As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart. As, in an interval of 3 days.
Oh, that's really cool. That works for guitars too. You know, for example, if I go back to my guitar, then set it up to be like your typical Daniel Lenoir H3000 reverb, super beautiful ambient piece of art. Hold on. Something like this maybe. Yeah, now I can go back to my original and bring that in gradually. And you'll never know that when it actually happens, you know, it just evolves. It just mutates all over the place. So I've covered the beautiful guitar stuff, I've covered the chorusing stuff, I've covered some monster voices. Now let me give you a little bit more of actual information about what's included in the plugin. So, it consists of basically 5 main processing units. On the top left is our delay. Now it's not a feedback delay or anything elaborate like that, but it's also not just a pre-delay. That's the original idea we had. Like, okay man, so we're doing a pitch shifter, it needs to have a pre-delay. Well, we made a pre-delay and we found it kind of boring. So we figured, hey man, sometimes it might be cool to delay the dry part and not delay the wet. You know, if you want the reverb playing before the original, stuff like that. So we made the delay time go negative to do just that. And then we went like, now what would be really cool is if we could do it in one direction for the left channel and the other direction for the right channel to make it like super wide with just one click. And it turns out that works really, really well. So let me bring up a clean guitar to show you, 50-50 mix, to show you the effects of the delay. Because it sounds simple, but it sounds, the results are very intense sometimes. Okay, so now regular pre-delay. Actually, let me do a pitch shift so you... Right? Nothing new. The other way around. And now I hit this button over here. Yeah, and now it's huge. Now I can hear some skeptics going, but yeah, I use has panning all the time. I delay one channel and then it's like wide. And I'll go, yeah, that's right. But it'll also be on one side of your stereo field. Because whichever channel plays first is where you perceive the sound to be. Now, the way this works, the way this is wired up, there's always playing stuff in sync on both channels, so none of them comes first. But you still have different signal components on the left and right. So it's wide, but in the center. I don't know why nobody's done this, or nobody that I'm aware of has done this before. It's very simple, very effective. Do watch your phase meters though. It is a left-right delay kind of job, you know? So it might mess up your mono compatibility. Right, that was the first section. Section 2 over here is the original thing we started out with for this plugin, the warp section. What does it do? Well, technically speaking, it is a local time domain spectral inversion and iterations of that processor, whatever that really means. As a takeaway, it's not an FFT-based spectral processor, so it doesn't go all washed out and fluttery and MP3-ish on you. No, it's time domain, crisp and crystal clear. Let me just show you on that guitar what that thing can do. Bypass the pitch shifting, just the warp. It's really far out. I'm not really hearing too well what I'm doing, so, but if you take a little time to tweak it to suit your signal, you can get stupidly crazy stuff. Now you may have noticed, I'm sure you have noticed, it has a little bit of a ring modulation flavor to it. You know, yeah, but it's not a ring modulator, because you will not get these tones with a ring modulator, because what it does is different, basically. So have a look at the website. I did a whole lot of spectrograms and comparisons, what a ring modulator would do, what this would do. What is similar between a ring modulator and this is that it can be used to create disharmonic, complex, metallic spectra, right? But it also features the pulse parameter, which is what it basically iterates the processor multiple times into itself like a feedback, but on a higher level. And as a result, it gets a resonator-like sound quality. So if I go for this, oh, let's use the voice actually. Here's our speech again.
As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson.
So let me set that up.
As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson
now
and
that's
the
the warp.
Columbus had observed it at 2 different
And now I'm going
points
to
of
bring
the
up the
chart.
poles.
As, in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus, and observed it at 2 different points of the chart, as in an interval of 3 days.
Now that sounds kind of like a resonator, like a modal resonator, delays with feedback, but it's not as washed out because it is not a delay. You know, you'll note if you listen to the speech detail that it's still crisp and intelligible.
As in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus.
Now let's see how that sounds with the dry-wet morphing.
As in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus
Yeah.
had observed
Now
it
it's
at
really
2
crisp
different points
and
of the chart.
focused.
As in an interval of 3
Let's
days,
add some reverb.
the Governor Higginson and the Columbus
And maybe
had observed it at
some
2
octave
different points
shifting.
of the chart. As in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus had observed it at 2 different points of the chart. As in an interval of 3 days, the Governor Higginson and the Columbus had...
Yeah. So what I just forgot to say is that the warp and the shift sections live in series, right? You can switch the ordering in the top left using the little button, the WSR or SWR button. So you can swap them around for variations on the theme. The pitch shifter that I kind of went into earlier is the third major section. It's just a pitch shifter and a frequency shifter, but they're really particular. Now, the frequency shifter has a nearly perfect sideband and carrier suppression. What does that mean? It sounds really, really clean. Now, if you try your run-of-the-mill frequency shifter and you shift up by 1 kilohertz, you'll shift the stuff, but you'll hear an annoying 1 kilohertz ringtone. Not with this, because there's no bleed. The pitch shifter, I explained it earlier, is a very unique design. And we have one more control that I didn't touch yet. It's the decay time control. What is that? Essentially, it reduces the decay time for parts of the spectrum based on how long they're playing. Now that may sound very technical, but in practice, just reduce the decay time to make stuff more tight sounding. Let me see whether I can show that with the guitar real quick, because it is a cool feature. Okay, let me just shift down the guitar. Now that's all the way down, right? Now you can really fine-tune that. Why did we put that in there? Well, if you shift in frequency upwards by a lot, what happens is that the harmonics that are typically logarithmically spaced are linearly shifted, so they move closer to each other in terms of pitch in the mid-range, where human hearing is most sensitive, right? So what it ends up doing is it sounds like it was ringing in the mid-range because they're so lumped together in terms of hearing. Now that can be annoying and distracting and make the whole frequency shifting thing way less useful. What we can do with the decay time control is combat that to some extent to make it lose that sustained sine wave flavor. Section number 4 is a reverb. Well, actually it's 2 reverbs. It's an all-pass based reverb like the one we use in Morph and the all-pass module of Adaptive Verb. In this case, we have 2 of them. Why 2? Well, the obvious reason is that what is better than a great reverb? 2 great reverbs. But that wasn't really our reasoning. Together with the dry-wet morphing, if you have a reverb before the morph and you morph into the dry signal, it may not actually sound like a reverb. It'll sound big and huge and gated or strange, all of those, but not like a reverb. So we went like, hey man, in that case, maybe you want to have an additional reverb after the morphing. And then we went like, yeah, well, so let's switch between the 2, but why not just have both as well? So that's why we have both. You can switch between them using this little control here. Now, the dry-wet morphing I touched earlier, that's section number 5, but what I didn't mention yet is that it has 2 morphing modes. one uses the effect signal as the basic structure that it uses for the morphing, and the other uses the dry signal for that. So they have different weightings and different intermediate stages. You really want to play with them, but they sound very different. Yeah, so one last thing to mention is that there's a random settings generator. Well, it's not random, because I hate random generators, because 999,999 times out of a million, they do just that, random stuff, and like set the output gain to minus infinity, and something you don't use. Now we went ahead and programmed into this random generator weightings and relationships between parameters, so that, like, for example, if you're in morphing mode, then the dry wet will only move in this amount, or this will not move at all, stuff like that. As a result, 999,998 times of a million, you'll get crap, but 2 times it'll be awesome. No, it's not that bad. It's kind of cool. Play with it. It actually gives... Yeah, that's kind of far out. That was 3 clicks to get something cool. Well, if you're into weird stuff, that is, of course. Yeah, that concludes the demo. Wormhole's available right now for VST audio, VST2 and VST3 audio units, RTAS, AEX native on Mac and PC in 32-bit, 64-bit. Yeah, Mac and Windows, I said. There's an introductory offer running right now, so it's a good idea that if you want this, to buy it soon, because it's cheaper now. It's regularly $179 US or 199 euros, including 19% German VAT. Don't ask what that is without VAT. I'm not that good in math. The intro is $149, I think. That's the part I can remember. It's on the website. It's also included in 2 new bundles. The design bundle, which also includes Adaptiverb and Morph 2. And there is an upgrade path to the design bundle if you already have Adaptiverb and Morph 2. That is like really low priced. And then there is Zap 2, our new comprehensive all of our Zynaptiq plugins bundle, which is also now available. Thanks for watching. I hope I didn't mess up too badly on my first demo for the day. Enjoy, check out the software, have a great show.
Great,
merci beaucoup, Denis. Voilà, Arnaud, qu'est-ce que t'en as pensé?
Eh ben, comme d'habitude, alors je sais pas si vous avez bien entendu, parce qu'on a beaucoup de problèmes là. C'est non seulement c'est du live, mais en plus, évidemment, on a fait le soundcheck avant, et le mec il a monté les faders sur la console.
Oui, mais ça c'est normal,
voilà,
ça, c'est comme les
d'hab,
musiciens.
Les sondiers connaissent bien ça. Voilà, je sais pas si vous avez pu entendre les sons, sinon vous aurez des démos. Et puis nous on y reviendra sur Audio Fanzine, mais il y a un algo de pitch shifting de malade mental dedans, avec très peu de glitch, un truc assez pur, qui est combiné en fait un système de morphing et quelque chose qu'ils appellent le warp, qui mine, même s'ils se défendent que c'est pas la même chose, c'est vrai, fait un peu des sons entre le résonateur et le ring modulator. Et qui permet d'obtenir des trucs assez dingues. Vous avez vu des effets de voix de robot, des effets plus normaux de pitch vers le haut, vers le bas, mais après des effets pour robotiser des voix avec des trucs super clean.
Bon, ça a l'air d'être une belle usine à gaz quand même.
Ouais, mais en même temps, il n'y a pas tellement de contrôle. J'ai l'impression qu'il y a beaucoup de possibilités en ayant peu de contrôle. Donc ça reste très intéressant. Moi je suis curieux de faire muse avec ça chez moi, tranquille.
Je pense qu'on va essayer ça. Les prix, je sais pas si vous avez entendu, mais je crois que c'est 200 balles.
On est à 200 balles.
Avec peut-être 150 en introduction.
Voilà, c'est ça. On est sur une grace period. Pour l'instant, c'est 50 balles de moins, donc 150 balles. Mais je suis pas sûr, si j'ai bien compris, il faut prévoir la TVA en plus. Et puis visiblement, il y a 2 nouveaux bundles qui sont sortis chez eux. Bon voilà, Zynaptiq en tout cas, comme d'hab, une boîte très intéressante. Nous on va vous laisser là, on va peut-être aller bouffer, Grégoire, quand même.
J'ai faim.
Un petit bretzel. On vous bisous d'Allemagne. Ciao les mecs.
Bisous, ciao.